Check, check. Am I live? Is it almost 5? It's like 4:45. Um, I'll give my peeps a minute to find my live since I didn't really give much announcement. I thought I did, but then it turned out that I had it like scheduled for the wrong day. There's always something going on. Remember, I'm not allowed to touch anything. I got to stop. Because then that one makes that one. And yeah, okay, not touching nothing. Okay, are you there? I'm here. Please hit your like button. Make sure you're still subscribed, or if you're not subscribed, consider doing so. Turn on your notification bell to ring. Share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like my channel. I want to go back to the ungaslighting. Man, trying to undo the years of gaslighting on a national level at this point is just freaking crazy. The lies, the deceit, the cheating, the cover up, the projecting, the accusations. You know, people that gaslight will always accuse others of doing to them what they're doing to you. They love playing the victim. Anna Bees, what is up? I'm so happy to see you. Hi, Jazz and everyone. I was watching another video and then saw your notification. Well, the funny thing is I set this video up last night, but somehow it was set up for August 25th rather than the 15th. I must have had some fat thumbs or something. Anyway, I noticed it as I was about to come on live, and then I was like, oh, nobody's, there's nobody waiting, which is odd when I've had it set up for, 12 hours or more. But then I realized, oh, wait, that says I'm going to be doing this live in 10 days. So then I changed it and then came on live. So nice to see you, my dear. How are you? It's been a crazy day for me. I got to be honest, always keeping it real. Still got the braces. Still got the kind of the itch in the nose that always happens as soon as I hit the start button. Anyway, again, if those are the biggest problems I have today, I'm extremely fortunate, no doubt. So how are you? And it is Friday. It is the 15th of August. It's almost 5 in the evening. So as we speak, Vladdy, I came up with a new nickname for him last night, and I really liked it. Vladdy Daddy. Daddy Vladdy. Yeah, Daddy Vladdy. Are you getting used to them? I think so. Yeah. I mean, I just bit my tongue as I said that. Yeah, it's been almost 2 weeks. I'm definitely more used to them now than I was, day 1 and day 2. And I would think that I'll continue to get more used to them. So thanks for asking. Did you ever have braces? I'm just remembering that although I brushed my teeth, I did not go through there with like a cleaner thing. You get these little itty bitty pipe cleaners for your braces. And I don't mind brushing my teeth 3 or 4 times a day, which is basically what you have to do when you have braces. But I just feel like I'm constantly poking at them with those little tiny, I don't think I have one handy to show you, but they're like toothpicks, except that they look like pipe cleaners. They're cute. They're fun. They're effective. Fortunately, I didn't need them. I thought it said, no, unfortunately, I didn't need them. I was like, what? That's not unfortunate. And Fred Field is here. Hello, sir. Nice to see you. Are you recovered from your lawn mowing in the heat yesterday? Here for a short bit, I want to watch news about the Vladdy meeting. So I can tell you a little bit because I was catching up on that right before I came on. And yeah, definitely, segue over when you're ready. But essentially, they did not have their one-on-one meeting. It seems that Donnie chickened out of that, but I'm going to venture to guess, in my humble conspiracy theory, allegedly, that he did chicken out, that he tacoed again. but more so that the people around him were not comfortable with him meeting with Vladdy alone. And, it's bothering me. I feel like I have something in the front of my teeth. That's why I keep drinking the water. One sec. I even have my toothbrush right here, but I don't want to brush my teeth in front of you. Here, let me sneak off to the side. Man, it's always something. There's probably nothing there. It's probably going to keep bothering me, right? Hello, Helby. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. Oh, do you guys like my hat? I just got it today. It's so cute, isn't it? It's perfect. I was like, this is the hat that I need for my lives, for my YouTubing. Anyway, so Daddy Vladdy and Donnie no meet for the one-on-one. They were going to do this one-on-one with only interpreters, and I think it was canceled last minute. So allegedly now they're preparing to meet like 3-on-3, and then they're going to do a presser. I'd been predicting all week that this whole meeting wouldn't happen, that it would get canceled. So at first, when they said that the one-on-one was canceled, I was like, no way, I was right. I wasn't really expecting to be right. That was just kind of my instinct, was that it's like the whole meeting is all about the distraction, right? So he scheduled the meeting a week ago, right days after he was wandering around on the rooftop of the building of the White House, that distraction. And then he tried to do that distraction again on Saturday night, and they wouldn't let him. I think the night that he did it was maybe like Thursday. Well, I don't know that they wouldn't let him. There was an internal memo sent out that he was doing it. And then about half an hour later, there was an internal memo sent out that he wasn't doing it. And I can only imagine that people around him are trying to give him some suggestions and guidance to quit looking like a freaking lunatic, because he is a lunatic. He's an absolute lunatic. And he's not in good shape mentally, physically, emotionally. He's in bad shape. He's probably not sleeping. That's my guess. But let me do my disclaimer. Everything I say is simply my opinion. Hoping to open up a discussion, learn something, be educational. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an infotainment platform. And I'm just so happy to see you guys here today. And I hope that you can understand me with my crazy braces, and hopefully they'll quit bugging me. So Fred says, I spent an hour spraying crabgrass today, and it is hotter today. Yeah, it's really hot here today, too. Love your hat. Thank you, Helby. Yes, your hat is cute. Thanks, you guys. I know. I like it. I got my hair trimmed, and my hairdresser gave it to me. So I was like, sure, I'll take the cute hat. No problem. Are you telling me that I have bad hair? But no, I don't think I do. I'll show you. I mean, it's just a trim, but now that I say that, yeah, I have horrible hair. But yeah, she like styled it. She did all the like curling it and everything. So at first I didn't want to hide it with the hat, but then I was like, yes, I must wear the cute hat. It's kind of like a Ricky Lee Jones kind of hat, huh? Oh, I can't believe I've never had this hat. Doesn't it seem like it's something I should have had my whole life? Little T is just cray cray. Yes, let's get back on topic and quit talking about my hair and my hat, right? I've got so many notes. I get overwhelmed, and then I just don't even know where to begin. There's so many things I want to speak with you about. Let me start with a follow-up on a post that I put up. I think I mentioned it in a video too, maybe. There is a Virginia councilman. His name is Lee Vogler, Vogler. He's 38 years old. He was set on fire intentionally, I think about 2 weeks ago. Wait, I wrote down the date, I think. Yeah, the 30th of July. So yeah, just over 2 weeks ago. Set on fire intentionally. I think he was burned on at least 63% of his body, if not more, like third-degree burns. My husband, being an EMT, didn't think it was very likely that he would survive. He was like, he might survive like a year, but eventually the infection will get him. And Anna Bees, you can probably chime in on that. Horrifying. This councilman, Lee Vogler, I think he's a Republican, but as a councilman, you're not either. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, he's 38 years old. He's married with 3 kids, and he worked at a place called Showcase. What does that say? Can't read my own writing. Showcase something. The place that he was at when this guy, 29-year-old shot ski Michael Buck Hayes, confronted him inside the business establishment. They got into a conflict. They went outside. The 29-year-old proceeded to pour gasoline on him and torch him and then run away. And the police caught him, Danville PD. And obviously he was trying to kill the guy. And I don't know what the motivation is. I think there's been some updates the last couple of days. Finally, I'd been waiting and waiting and waiting for updates, and then got distracted by all this other stuff. And so anyway, I saw that there were updates. I hadn't had a chance to get too far, other than that this victim is still in critical condition. So yeah, Anna B says, I agree with your husband. Oh, that's so sad. Maybe there's some kind of technology, science and technology, that can be working at lightning speed to make that not be the case. I mean, honestly, I knew somebody who lived with third-degree burns. She was a professional electrician, like an industrial electrician, and she probably wasn't supposed to make it. I mean, she was like in a crawl space with a fireball, and she was disfigured, and it was life altering, but she did survive. Like, she had to have one of those like plexiglass masks things on half of her face, sort of like the Phantom of the Opera kind of thing. And she had been a very good looking individual. So it was extremely traumatic on so many levels. But one of those levels was that she was used to being like drop dead gorgeous, and all of a sudden she was a different person. So I hope that he survives. My goodness. Married with 3 kids, those poor children. And I would imagine that it was like, maybe it was a work related thing. Like maybe this guy, Shotsky, I think that's how you say his name. Shotsie. Shotsky. I've never heard of that. Maybe they worked together. I don't know. It could be a love triangle kind of thing, but I would not. There's nothing to indicate that. And there's almost a 10-year age difference, with the victim being 38 and the assailant being 29. So I don't know what Shosky's problem is. Man, I just hope this guy Lee survives. So I think I'd asked people to pray for him before, and I'll put a link in the description to a video about him. And I haven't watched any yet. I've read a couple of articles to get more details, but I haven't had a chance to watch any of the clips about him. Anyway, absolutely tragic and insane. So something I did not know. Did you guys know that cults all hate modern medicine? How did I write it? Medical care. That's what I wrote down. Cults hate medical care. Again, Anna B's being in the medical profession. Did you know this? Because I'm just kind of cult stupid, and I did not know that. And it was something that the knitting cult lady had like on a community post or on a short or something like that, that all cults hate medical care. And I was like, yeah, she's got a point there, doesn't she? And just plugging that into the equation with the whole MAGA movement and RFK Jr. canceling everything, canceling people's insurance, canceling the research, just canceling, just the cancel culture. It's freaking crazy. And especially when it comes to health and wellness. I mean, there's nothing more important, but I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's the absolute truth that part of this administration's plan is to thin out the population. And, there was the coincidence. Sorry, I bit my tongue. Maybe I should bite my tongue. There was that weird coincidence of the pandemic being that it happened under Dear Donnie's watchful eye, right? And then it wasn't as, it could have been a lot worse, the numbers of lives lost in our country. I think it was over 1 million, but it could have been a lot worse. Fortunately, it wasn't. But it almost seemed like Dear Leader wanted it to be when he was literally suggesting that you pour bleach in your eyes or mainline it in your veins. A lot of people joked around like, no, he didn't say to drink bleach. A lot of MAGA people were standing up for him. He never said drink bleach. It's like, yeah, you're right. He never did say drink bleach. He actually was sort of alluding to other ways of getting it inside of your system, wasn't he? Maybe with an enema or the other type. I don't want to say it just because it's so rude. Yeah, he definitely encouraged people to try disinfectant into their body, into their little ecosystems. And that would certainly kill the COVID. It would certainly kill the people too. So I don't know if people had done that. I figured that there would be people that would be like, well, the president suggested it, I might as well try it. And I don't think there were ever any reports of people doing it, but who knows if there were people that tried it and it just didn't get reported and publicized. That wouldn't surprise me in the least, with my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. Let's see. I did not know that, probably because we are mandated reporters. He said sort of like a cleansing. Yeah, that was nuts. So, you didn't know about the cults being hating medical care? Is that what you're referring to? Anyway, where shall I start? Let's start with Michael Cohen and his interview with Tara Palmieri. She's actually doing a live right now, so it was very tempting for me to postpone my live so that I could watch it live, but I'll watch it later on her replay crew. She's doing a live of Ask Me Anything about what I know of the Epstein case, basically. And she is an expert in the Epstein case. She is also an expert in dealing with Mr. Michael Cohen. He could not have been a more difficult person for her to interview, and she handled it masterfully. I've rewatched the video a couple of times because he makes this comment that I put in the title of this video. They're going back and forth. It's in the first 10 minutes. They're going back and forth about a Jane Doe, the one that she doesn't refer to herself as a Jane Doe. She refers to herself as Katie Johnson. The woman that alleges that when she was 13, she was essayed by Dear Leader and by Little E at least 4 times, And at least one of those times it was simultaneous. It was both of them together with her. I'm pretty sure. And it might even be that it was more than one time, that it was, let's just call it a three-way or threesome. I don't know. Trigger warning. I think they were taking turns. And I think she described that they were like tying her up or something. Like I said, trigger warning. Sorry for that. Anyway, the interview is one that I will also link in the description. And I could have sworn it was on the Today Show with Savannah Guthrie, but now I'm wondering if I am wrong about that, because the interview has almost been scrubbed off the internet and it's hard to find it, but it's like popping up in places, because I think that it came up in a lot of places a few weeks ago, and I think it got scrubbed, and I think that it's coming up again now. So Katie Johnson says that this happened, I want to say maybe in the early 90s, like around 93, I think. And then she's the one that filed her lawsuit 3 times in 2016. So the first time was somewhere around April. I think the second time was over the summer. And then the third time was in the fall. And all 3 times she withdrew it. And all 3 times she said because she was being harassed and threatened. So at about the 10-minute mark and 48 seconds, I think it is, Michael Cohen is referring to this Jane Doe. So the back and forth, sorry, I'm not telling the story very well. The back and forth, the arguing is Tara keeps asking him about Katie Johnson. And again, Katie Johnson is a pseudonym. And then he's talking about a Jane Doe. First, he denies that there was any Jane Doe or any Katie Johnson, that none of it happened. And she was like, no, this did happen. This was 2016. She filed the lawsuit 3 times. She withdrew it 3 times. There were allegations that the candidate on the Republican ticket had essayed a teenager who was coming forward now. And then it all went away and the election happened. We all know, the rest is history, right? And he just kept swearing that he knew nothing about it. He wasn't involved. He was so defensive. And I've mentioned this in my video yesterday. He was literally attacking Tara rather than conversing. He was like, it was so uncomfortable to watch. And then it was, the first time I watched it, I did not want to watch it. And I kept like taking breaks because it was that uncomfortable. And then it was after I was done that it kind of hit me like, oh man, he's so profoundly defensive, that he's so aggressive. He's kind of rabid. He's like a rabid dog, like attacking her. It's nuts. And she just keeps her cool. Like I said, absolute professionalism there. And so when he's arguing with her, he finally cracks and basically says, okay, well, there was one Jane Doe, an infant. Again, trigger warning. That's the word that he used. And this interview with him was like maybe 4 days ago now. And they've talked about it on the Young Turks. And Tara's talked about it in her own video yesterday. And other channels are talking about it as well. It's an absolutely insane interview. But he said infant, Jane Doe infant. And I think I wrote down the quote. It just kills me. It absolutely kills me. How many pages do I have to go back? Many, I do believe. Man, the squirreliness, the gaminess. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Okay. It's at the 10-minute, 48-second mark, where he says Jane Doe, an infant, by and through her mom, Mary Jane Doe, I've talked about this a million times. He's getting really angry, really worked up. I've talked about this a million times, this thing that didn't happen, according to him. And he said the R word, that this was an allegation of an underage female. And he's just going on and on about how it didn't happen, but that there was this one Jane Doe, an infant, by and through her mom, Mary Jane Doe. And it's kind of like, wait, I thought there were no allegations of anything. This what he'd been saying all the way up until that point when he cracked and then said Jane Doe, an infant. I can't even begin to fathom why other people aren't talking about this. Why did he say that? Was that a slip of the tongue? Like, maybe that was a slip of the tongue. Maybe that's not what he meant. So he's describing that it never happened, but then this thing did, maybe, sort of, not really, but he hired a private eye to go find these people, and his private eye went to the Bronx. Okay. I'm just like, oh, he didn't go to the Bronx. He went to the Bronx. Again, maybe he's just really nervous and he's misspeaking. So he says his private eye went to the Bronx. He found this address and that it was an empty parking lot. So there was nobody there. Therefore, she didn't exist and none of it ever happened. And then again, Tara's like, but a lot of Jane Does use fake addresses or use their attorney's address when filing a lawsuit because they're afraid of the defendant stalking them or hiring a private investigator to find them. So it's just mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. And I would imagine that people are going to continue to talk about this interview because it's simply stunning. And infant is twisting my brain. It really is. What is Anna saying? Yes, about the cult being against the medical care. Yeah. So I think this whole next page is about it. Could not be more squirrely, but really the beauty of every single thing that I want to quit calling him dear leader, that every single thing that the Trumpster fire is doing right now, as far as trying to create distractions, like, invading DC with military, with the National Guard, meeting with Vladimir Putin at this big summit in Alaska, going out on the roof. Each one of these things, he's literally like stepping on an effing rake and just hitting himself in the face. He's simply worse and worse and worse. I'm pretty sure everything he's been doing in Washington, D.C. is illegal. I know that because it's not a regular state, it's that the laws are different there. So he thought he could get away with it, but I don't think he's doing it legally. We got to have justice, right? Coco knocked it down. And yeah, the thing with Alaska, I mean, you can't have a war criminal come onto U.S. territory and not arrest them, can you? Why would you want to? Why the F would you want to? And you certainly can't go giving them any of our country or the country that they've invaded. But I'm pretty sure that all those things are going to happen by the end of the day. And again, if they do, he's basically stepping on a rake and whacking himself in the face. And I keep having this like vision of him being like the road runner, that he's like run off the road that, is like maybe it's under construction or it broke, but there's no road. But he's the road runner, and he's just like running a mile past where the road ends, and he's yet to notice that there's nothing below him. And when he does, not only is he going to fall into the deep crevasse, but he's also got like a rope tied around his ankle with a giant anvil that says Acme on it that's going to like pound him. He's doing all of this to himself. Any reasonable person, in my opinion, at this point would just step down and resign. And maybe it's good that he's not doing that, because if he did, we know who would take his place. And I don't think that would be any better at all. I don't think it'd be any better. I think that this administration is not a legitimate administration. I think they stole the election, and that needs to be addressed. And that the party that won the election, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of these statisticians that have been going over the ballots and the election, there's been election fraud. There's been election fraud. I mean, just the 200 bomb threats alone is cause for concern. There's never with any of our elections, as far as I know. That's what's been said. But there were 200 that day, and they all were via email. Every single one of them was an email, and I believe that every single one of them was an ISP or an email address that traced back to Russia, basically. So getting back into that one character, John Mark Dugan, I think that's his name, the man who was a Palm County Sheriff's deputy in Florida for 5 years until, wasn't it about 2016 when he defected to Russia? And he's been there ever since, and he's been like protected by Vladdy, and he is in charge of what once was described as 150 different troll fake accounts that were propagating fake news and election interference. But now with artificial intelligence, I'm like, if he had 150 channels or profiles or whatever a few months ago, with artificial intelligence, wouldn't that be like 150 million by now? I don't know. Anyway, that's the other thing I'm thinking too, just to jump to totally ahead of myself. I'm wondering if, I think I said this yesterday, I believe that Daddy Vladdy has all of the tapes. I believe that he has all of the e-files, every single record that little E ever kept. If Vladdy didn't have it, he got it. You know, he had somebody like Big Balls hack and copy, right? My guess is that he has all that. He's been leveraging against Trump, and he can threaten Trump. He basically has him by the cojones, right? Whether that's true or not about him having copies of everything, we know that he knows stuff, and we know that he's got our president by the cojones. That's, I think, irrefutable from the way the president has been acting. Spineless and shaking in his boots. And what was it that I wanted to say there? And then I'll read some more of your comments. It wouldn't surprise me if our president did a Polanski kind of thing and went to a country that didn't extradite. And I told you guys a few videos back, I looked up countries that don't extradite, and there were about 20 of them, and Russia was right there in them, of course. So for all we know, that's the deal that Donnie's hammering out with Daddy Vladdy, is can Vladdy protect him? Because it's only 2 weeks away, the end of the month and the return of the Congress. And then there are witnesses scheduled already, survivors of the abuse. And these survivors of the abuse are the victims whose lives have been ruined. That dear Donnie, all he ever talks about is how he doesn't want to release the files because there's all this fake information in there that could really destroy a lot of people's lives. And yeah, that's all he has to do is say, oh, I'm in there, fake news, right? See what I told you. What happened already destroyed people's lives. The lives are destroyed. They are trying to rebuild their lives. And this is just a continuation of the assault. I mean, on a massive, massive world platform. It's just disgusting. It's just despicable. And all this president wants to talk about is how he wants to protect, basically, he wants to protect the perpetrators that are listed and named in the information. So the survivors that are scheduled for their depositions, and I mean, I think a lot of these survivors that are still alive, that are still surviving, have been threatened. And some of them have signed the NDAs. There's well over 100 survivors of Little E's that took a settlement and signed non-disclosure agreements. So that group of people, I don't think can come forward, but maybe they can. Maybe the NDA was just with Epstein. Maybe they can come forward if it involves other people. So the book that was published yesterday about Prince Andrew is now out. Prince Andrew, Little E, and Donnie. So many torrid stories. It's only going to keep getting worse. And the more panicked Donnie and his wife become, filing lawsuits, trying to get people to wash the E and the T out of their mouth with soap. Like, you're not allowed to say their names together. You're not allowed to say Melania and Little E together, or she'll sue you for $1 billion. And Trump even said, you know, she asked me, should she do it? And I said, sure, you can use my lawyer. And I thought, that's funny that he says my lawyer, like they're married. Wouldn't that be their lawyer? And she asked him. She asked him. And so it was really exciting to see Hunter Biden's apology to Melania, or his retraction of his repeating what's already out there and what's in this book, I think, but it's already out there in the ether, that Little E is who introduced Melania to Little T. And she says, no. We met at a Kit Kat party and he asked for my number. And I said, no, give me your number. And sure, maybe they did meet at a Kit Kat party, but maybe it was through Little E, because that's been the word on the street. So Hunter Biden repeated that. So she slapped him with $1 billion lawsuit. And he was basically like, fine. And dropped the F-bomb about 20 times. He's just like, yeah, you're not gonna get me to unsay what I said. And it's just weird. Like, everything this administration is doing is weird. They're like trying to lock up a guy for 8 years for throwing his sandwich at an officer yesterday in DC. You guys have probably heard about the Subway sandwich. And, you know, I'm married to law enforcement. You definitely don't throw food. You don't throw anything at anyone, not just law enforcement. And yeah, he should be charged. but 8 years. What about January 6th when these people were beating officers with United States of America flagpoles and trying to wrestle their weapons from them so that they could unalive them with their own weapons? And all those MFs have been pardoned. Some of them have been hired into the freaking government. The government is talking about giving them reparations for wages lost or challenges in their lives for having to suffer the consequences of their own actions, their own illegal, stupid, dangerous behaviors. But then some idiot makes a really poor choice, throws his Subway sandwich, lands in the officer's chest, and like I said, of course he shouldn't have done it. I mean, even water is an assault weapon. Anything. You just don't throw things at people, period. And you especially don't throw things at officers, period. You don't threaten officers. But this young man, unfortunately for him, he did. And now they're ready to throw the book at him. And that is such an overreach. That is such an abuse of power. Like, yeah, put him on trial. Maybe he'll plead out. It's not, a sandwich is not a, it's not like it's a rock, you know? Anyway, I'm going to read your comments like I said I was going to. Yes, that would make sense to use a different address. Right. And because there's an empty parking lot, you're trying to say that a person doesn't exist and that an assault didn't happen because there's not a structure at that location. Ridiculous. In the Bronx, could he have used infant but meant child? You choose wrong word. Exactly, Fred. That was what I thought the first time I heard it, and I just kind of skipped right over it. But it's, you know, I keep going back to it. And I want to watch the whole hour and 10-minute video again, because I could swear he actually said infant more than once, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So I do need to rewatch the entire thing anyway, just because now that I've gotten over how jarring and uncomfortable it is to watch, maybe I can just like cuddle puppies while I'm watching it, and I can maybe watch the whole thing from start to finish and take notes and get a clearer picture of the whole interview, because it is just so awful to watch. Like in the Young Turks video, I think they just did a 17-minute video about it, and they only showed like a 3-minute clip, if even that. And in Tara's video where she goes over it herself yesterday, that was a much shorter video too. So, you know, it's just painful. It's absolutely painful to watch this squirrely, like I said, rabid attack, you know. He's obviously so used to intimidating people, just like his big boss man. Some minorities refer to 18-year-old gun victims as their babies. I hear you, Fred. And yeah, baby is a different word than infant too. And yeah, it could be that he just meant child, but he accidentally said infant. But he didn't catch it, and neither did Tara, and neither did the Young Turks, and neither did any of the other channels so far that I've seen them reviewing the interview. So I'm asking you guys too, if you're interested, review it, especially if you just want to like watch that 1 minute from about 10 minutes to 11 minutes, if you don't feel like sitting through more than that. And you, from listening to me, you kind of have the context of the conversation. Let's hope that's why he said the wrong word, Fred. Yeah, really. Unbelievable. I dreamt that I got in a verbal argument with a little T supporter. Oh, that's funny, Annabees. I had a weird dream last night too, and you just reminded me because when I woke up, I was remembering it very clearly. And I think I was in some type of disagreement with a couple of people. I think it was people that I knew in real life, though, and it was just kind of funny when I woke up. I was like, oh, that's funny that they showed up in my dream. What do you know? And yeah, I should have written it down so I could talk to my husband about it because it was funny. Maybe I'll remember later if I can go for a walk or garden or something where I can meditate. So glad he didn't leave the yard, Fred. So glad he didn't leave the yard. Okay, I skipped over that comment, so let me read it now. Isn't it funny how the eyes do that sometimes? By accident yesterday, I left the side gate open the second time that I let Dexter out today. He looked scared that it was open and stayed in the yard. What a good boy. Knows he has a good deal here. That is so cute, Fred. And yeah, I am so glad that he's such a good boy. That's frightening. Yeah. Remind me Dexter's age and what type of canine he is. Exactly, Jazz. The January 6th insurrectionist did many illegal things, taking a dump on someone's desk. Well, and I mean, unsanitary is not the right word, but the disease, I mean, fecal matter carries disease. And then there was also the red stuff everywhere and smeared on the walls. I mean, the disease factor is as bad as the violence factor. And it was over 100 officers, I think, that were physically assaulted and injured. And it's like, how Trumpster Fire says, really? You're going to ask me a question about Epstein? We're still talking about this creep. It's like, really? We're still talking about this January 6th crap? Like going back and forth that they're freaking heroes that were held hostage that deserve reprimands versus that they're dirty rat bastard criminals, many of which have been charged and convicted with the things that we're talking about, crimes towards children, inappropriate adult types of things with child victims. These are some sick people, the J6ers. They're some very sick people. Super smart, maybe 4 years old pit bull chicken. I just love his name, Fred. It's so cute. Hilarious. Yes, that they assaulted officers. Yeah. And then that one, Brian Sicknick, that passed away the next day after getting a concussion. I think he was 41 years old. He'd been a Trump supporter. Remember, he had written a letter to his hometown newspaper supporting Trump in the 2016 election, but he was not a supporter for the 2020 election. He was one of those that jumped ship. And what's amazing is that there's people who still haven't jumped ship, that this president, this orange man baby that's referred to as a president, is meeting with a war criminal on our soil and not arresting him. And there's still people that are going to support the orange man baby that does crap like that. You've got to be freaking kidding me. It's just getting worse and worse. Yes. That is a really good point, Anna Bees. You could argue that it was a biological weapon. That is brilliant. Absolutely. They didn't just do that to be disgusting and disrespectful, that they did that to spread disease. That is such a good point, Anna Bees. But they've all been freaking pardoned. I'm going to drop an F-bomb right there. I cannot handle kink and anal. And it's like, I think maybe you're doing voice to text and you meant like Mick Kinkles. But whichever it is funny. I know, the McKinkles. And that situation with his ankles swelling up like that, that's a pretty poor prognosis for heart issues, isn't it, Anna Bees? Super smart, maybe 4 years old. Okay, I read that part, but I hadn't missed Anna Bees. Yes, that they assaulted officers. Okay, I've read everybody's. Thanks, you guys. Let's see what else I have in my little magic notebook about that damn territory swap. That was the phrase that tipped me off when Donnie first spoke of this meeting last weekend, that he was planning to meet with Vladdy Daddy in Alaska to discuss a territory swap. It's a really weird word to use, just like when he called St. Petersburg Leningrad. Also a very weird word to use. It has not been referred to as Leningrad for over 35 years. And people who know a lot more about the history than I do say that that's a very big indicator of his mindset with what was going on with the struggle in Leningrad when Leningrad did not win. It's not called Leningrad anymore. It's called St. Pete's. I think that's St. Petersburg. Am I right about that? Like I said, I'm not real knowledgeable with Russian history. I'm not real knowledgeable with world history. I'm honestly not that knowledgeable with American history. I'm on quite the learning curve, but I just feel like it's imperative to pay attention and to figure out what I can and just to keep my eye on the ball. So thanks for supporting me in that venture, because it's not that much fun. It's a little bit of fun when I feel like I'm on top of it, but most of the time I don't feel like I'm on top of it. I feel like I'm kind of on a treadmill and I'm falling backwards as I'm trying to run and keep up and get ahead with, there's just too much going on. He has been sound asleep on the love seat next to me for an hour, all 70 pounds. He's 70 pounds. I was thinking smaller just because our dogs are smaller. My big one, Coco, is she still in here? Come here, Coco. She's only like 35 pounds, I think. And she's the big one. She's a full-size dog. Our other little rugrats are 10 pounds. And that's Mookie. Mookie's 10 pounds. I'm not sure about she. She might be like 14 pounds would be my guess, but maybe not. Maybe she's closer to Mookie's size. All that fur, it's kind of hard to tell. She's just a big hairball. Let's see. No Jazz. The Young Turks. Kink pronounced Jink and Anna. Oh, thank you, Anna Bees. Thought you were talking about the McKinkles. The swelling in the ankles. What's your next comment about that? Could mean congestive heart failure. Well, like I keep saying, just the look on his face. He's obviously so profoundly stressed. And the body can only take so much stress. He really should give himself a break and give this entire country a break and give the world a break and just freaking surrender, Dorothy. Just wave the white flag. Just go hide in Russia. Just get the F out. Just please, like, leave our country alone. I feel like he's this abusive dictator that is like abusing this entire country and abusing the entire world. And the more I learn about Little E's shenanigans with finances and, you know, his participation in what led up to the economic crash in 2008, and previous to that, his participation in what led up to the economic crisis in the late 80s. And then what I feel like we're seeing happen now. Some of this, I believe, is contrived. It's calculated. It's intentional to crash and burn the markets so that they can run off with the money, basically, essentially, to speak in very simple terms. There are a couple of articles I was thinking of reading to you guys. It's been almost an hour already, but let me see what you're saying and see if I should maybe do that. Solid muscle, Dexter. Yes, Jazz. I wish he would go away. I know. I just can't believe that he hasn't yet. I really can't. Like, let me see if I can. There were a couple of really good articles. I don't know if I have it in me to read that much. I don't know if you guys want me to read to you that much, but I read them yesterday and they were highly informative. And I thought that I would read them to you. So I put the links in the description already. I'm so pissed off. And I'm trying to just pull them up without any sound so that you don't have to listen to that stupid ad about that woman saying she's so pissed off. Okay. So where's the articles? There they are. Oh, did I not put them in there? Okay, I did. In his own words. Yes, so the top one is an article from The Independent, and the bottom one is an article from a business article. Let me see. They were kind of, in a sense, kind of boring, but actually really important. Like this first one is called Jeffrey Epstein, The Trail of Ruined Lives, Misery, and Bankruptcy, Arch Swindler, and Pedophile Left in His Wake. Let me see if I can read to you guys. Is that all right? Do you mind if I read to you? It's very educational, and I have a bunch more notes, but let me just try to see how interesting this is to you guys. And then I can see if I can figure out the author. At the beginning, middle, and end of his career, Jeffrey E. faced a reckoning with his misdeeds. At every stage, he managed to avoid the efforts of prosecutors and victims to confront him with his financial chicanery. I love that word. It's not one you see very often. His financial chicanery and sexual abuses. On Saturday, he apparently chose to end his life rather than face what he had done. So this one obviously is written right after he offed himself or was Epstein. Little E's deceased by hanging in his cell in a New York jail appears to be a macabre final escape in a long series of evasions by a fabulously wealthy financier and convicted Rex offender who used his private jet and Palm Beach, Florida parties to lure presidents and plutocrats into his orbit. Equal parts charisma and devious, he was a Wall Street washout with a knack for numbers, and according to those who worked with him, a mind set on deceit. Oh, it's so annoying when it tries to make you look at their stupid ads. From his beginning as a college dropout who scored a job as a math teacher at a Manhattan prep school, and that is the Dalton School, to his career as a millionaire advisor to some of the nation's top corporate executives and politicians, Little E acted as if the rules of life did not apply to him. A decade ago, he avoided a long prison sentence even after police and prosecutors amassed an enormous array of evidence showing that he regularly abused girls at his Palm Beach mansion and on a Caribbean island that he'd bought. So in protecting him, they were protecting the people around him, is what I believe. And some of those people around him were probably law enforcement and legal officials that had control over the case and how the case went, which would make perfect sense then, wouldn't it? These people think that they're entitled to abuse anyone they want to in any way they want to. Right. I mean, how many times has Dear Donnie respected anybody's rejection of him? Okay. Where was I? In that case, as at several pivotal points throughout his life, Little E avoided the law by deploying some of the nation's most famous lawyers and leaning on friendships with powerful figures in politics, business, and academia. Little E's ability to slip away even when those around him are held to account reaches back to well before he'd accumulated any fortune. Little E, who died at 66, reported to federal authorities recently that he was worth $559 million. But some of his associates contend that he had much more than that hidden overseas. Others wonder whether he had anything close to that sum. Whatever the truth, he worked to build the impression that he was wealthy and influential, helping him connect with powerful people who for many years defended his character when rumors emerged that he was abusing women and girls. The story of Little E's first great escape is a tale of financial wizardry and brazen criminality, in which hundreds of thousands of Americans lost their retirement money, their life savings, on an investment intended to enrich only its creators. That money would have been my real retirement, said Verena Brown, a 91-year-old retired teacher in Granbury, Texas, who invested all of her savings, $112,000, in bonds that a young Little E sold for his partner, Stephen Hoffenberg. Remember that name? That name came up yesterday. Stephen Hoffenberg. She lost every penny of the money. Somebody should know that Epstein did a number on a little teacher in Texas, Mrs. Braun said. Mr. Hoffenberg, who headed up the investment scheme and spent 18 years in prison because of it, said in an interview with the Washington Post this week that Little E was the architect of the scam. Federal prosecutors agreed, yet Little E was never charged. His name, initially included in prosecutors' descriptions of the scheme, quickly vanished from the record. Just imagine if he had been put in prison back then for the same 18 years that Hoffenberg was. Just imagine how many victims wouldn't have been victimized and suffered through his wrath. I thought Jeffrey was the best hustler on 2 feet, Mr. Hoffenberg said. Talent, charisma, genius, criminal mastermind. We had a thing that could make a lot of money. We called it Ponzi. Mr. Hoffenberg pleaded guilty in 1995 to mail fraud, obstruction of justice, and tax evasion in 2 scams. One designed to misuse the asset of 2 Illinois insurance companies, and the other fleecing more than $460 million from about 200,000 investors who bought notes and bonds from Mr. Hoffenberg's Towers Financial Corporation. Last year, I got a call at home from no less than Stephen Hoffenberg, said Marvin Gerber, another victim of the scam, and a tour operator on Long Island who lost about $250,000 that he'd invested in promissory notes that Little E and Mr. Hoffenberger were selling. He said he sat in jail for years trying to figure out how he was going to get the money to give back to the people who lost it. He said he was going to try to get it from the guy who absconded with the money, Little E, but of course, I got nothing. From the very start, I was screwed. Last year, 2 of the victims in the scam filed suit against Little E, seeking the return of their original investments. 2 months later, they dropped their suit. Little E's career in finance started at Bear Stearns, the investment banking firm that hired him away from his job teaching math at the Tony Dalton School. And that's the job that Donald Barr William Barr's dad allegedly got for him. He was the headmaster there. Although, of course, they try to say that, he didn't have anything to do with it. And yeah, they try to say that so that William Barr can then do whatever he wants with the Epstein case, where he shouldn't have anything to do with. He should have never had anything to do with the Epstein case when he was the attorney general, because he was protecting not only his dad, but probably himself too. Because what do you want to bet? He was involved with little E as Dear Donnie. I'll just keep reading. The investment banking firm that hired him away from his job teaching math at the Tony Dalton School. It may have helped that he came to Bear Stearns after having tutored the son of the firm's chairman. He quickly rose to become a limited partner, but left the company suddenly in 1981. Little E later testified in a Securities and Exchange Commission investigation that some people at the firm thought his departure had to do with an illicit affair with a secretary. But little E said he had been questioned by his bosses about an improper loan he'd made to a friend to buy stock. I wonder if that friend could have been Donnie. Who knows? But even if it wasn't that loan, I mean, these guys covered for each other. And Prince Andrew. That loan could have been for Prince Andrew. He spent the next few years on his own trying to build a money management practice known as J. Epstein and Company. In 1987, he met Mr. Hoffenberg. In the late 80s, Hoffenberg was, by his own account, a schemer. I was always under investigation, he said. From afar, he seemed successful. He briefly owned the New York Post, and he rented a floor in the Trump Tower. Donald's crowd was my crowd, Mr. Hoffenberg said. But much of Mr. Hoffenberg's career involved schemes to separate investors from their money, He figured little E had the smarts to help him do that on a much bigger scale. Yes. The rules of life don't apply to them, perfectly stated. And then what's your next comment here? Powerful people. Make sure I don't lose my place here. Enabled little E because they were hooked on his supply. Yeah. And, he had dirt on them. So if they crossed him, he could really destroy them. Mr. Hoffenberg said he was introduced to little E by Douglas Leese. And that was a name from yesterday, too, that I was like, I think we're going to be hearing more about Hoffenberg and Leese. Because, I really want to know, behind the scenes, what led up to this insanity of where we're at now. It's outrageous. So it's as much about money as it is about power and control. I mean, it's hard to say in which order. It's all of the above. And this is so important. Douglas Leese, a British arms dealer. The guy's a genius, Mr. Hoffenberg said. Mr. Leese told him. He's great at selling securities, and he has no moral compass. This is little E that they're talking about. He has no moral compass. Whereas little E then went on to say that his friend Donnie had no scruples, that he was a man without scruples, which is why he wouldn't cross him, because he feared for his life. And that was right before he got Epstein. He said that to Michael Wolff, that he admitted that he was a pervert, but he said, I'm not stupid. Donnie has no scruples. So a man with no moral compass calling, the pot calling the kettle black, right? Mr. Leese did not respond to messages seeking comment. Between 87 and 93, Epstein worked for Mr. Hoffenberg, who paid him $25,000 a month and gave him a $2 million loan in 88 that Epstein would never have to pay back, according to court documents. Well, isn't that nice? And then he was able to use that money to abuse girls and young women. And look like Mr. Big and be all scary and intimidating and act like he could make or break their careers and that they'd have to do what he said or else. So disgusting. Mr. Hoffenberg's firm, Towers Financial, started out as a collection agency, buying bills that were owed to other firms and collecting as much of the unpaid debts as it could. In 1986, after adding business units in finance and leasing, Towers reported nearly 1,200 employees and nationwide sales of $95 million. Mr. Hoffenberg, like Epstein, a Brooklyn native who never finished college, was on his way to acquiring many of the trappings of New York's financial elite, including chauffeured luxury cars, speedboats, and a 72-foot yacht. But in 1987, Towers began constructing one of the largest frauds in history. The scheme began when Towers acquired the parent of two insurance companies, Associated Life Insurance and United Fire. Then Towers launched a takeover attempt against Pan Am, the airline, the once proud but then struggling airline. To boost its chances, Towers sold the SEC that it had to boost its chances, Towers told the SEC that it had an expert on its team, Epstein. Towers called him a financial advisor who had been familiar with Pan Am for approximately 6 years, end quote, and was now advising Towers. What neither regulators nor Pan Am knew was that, as Mr. Hoffenberg admitted later in court, Towers had begun devising a classic Ponzi scheme named for a swindler who defrauded investors by moving money back and forth to create a false impression that profit was being made. After acquiring the insurance companies, Towers began siphoning funds from them to make its bid for Pan Am look viable. Mr. Hoffenberg and Epstein also began pulling out hundreds of thousands of dollars for themselves, court documents show. And you got to remember, this is all the same type of stuff that Dear Donnie was doing. And in 1990 was when that, was it a helicopter crash? Or I think it was an airplane crash that 3 of his vice presidents from Trump Taj Mahal passed away. That was 1990. And then didn't he file bankruptcy for the first time in like 93? I'm not sure about that, but I am pretty sure about the 1990 with the 3 VPs from the Trump Taj Mahal that died. Mr. Hoffenberg issued more than 50 checks from the insurance companies to pay his stepdaughter's tuition, expenses on his private plane, and monthly $25,000 checks to Epstein. I advanced money to Epstein perpetually because I thought this thing could work, Mr. Hoffenberg said. He could sell anything. People loved him. When the airline takeover failed, the insurance companies faltered. Then in 88, Towers took another $1.8 million from the insurers and used it to attempt another airline takeover, Emory Air Freight. Towers filed fake financial information to accountants and investors to cover its tracks, according to court records. Oh, like fudging the numbers? Like Dear Donnie likes to talk about how people fudge the numbers, I think because he fudges numbers. These are all new numbers. Okay. That takeover also failed, leaving the insurance companies insolvent. The looting of the 2 insurers left 4,000 Illinois customers out $9 million that had been set aside to cover their medical bills. Another 2,200 Ohio customers lost about $1.8 million. The Illinois Department of Insurance placed the companies in receivership. The state and the SEC sued Towers. But Mr. Hoffenberg and Epstein weren't done. According to prosecutors, they expanded the fraud dramatically. Beginning in 1988, Towers began selling more than $270 million worth of promissory notes, offering returns of 12 to 16% and marketing them largely to people of modest means, among them widows, retirees, and people with disabilities. These rat bastards. This article is making me realize how the elite are made in their private schools and fraternities and universities. Yeah, you just got to get somebody to vouch for you, and then you're good to go. Like make friends with Prince Andrew or little E or little T. They all egg each other on in their depravity. Yes, they're all criminals, and they call minorities criminals. Exactly. They are just greedy effing criminals that don't want to share even with legitimate migrants from other countries who come here legally and add to our economy and to our culture. They want less of everybody. They just want it all. Nothing is ever enough for these scum. It's ridiculous. So yeah, they're ripping off widows, retirees, and people with disabilities, like going after the weak. And it's so sick. It's like you can really judge a society by how they treat their most vulnerable populations. And like you said, they're depraved, they're criminals, they're disgusting. Okay, Mr. Hoffenberg and his company used several $1 million from those investors to show Illinois regulators that they were putting sufficient capital into the insurance companies to guarantee that those insurers could cover claims. But that money actually wasn't available to pay claims because it had been used in the efforts to take over the airline. I call it a turnover, Mr. Hoffenberg said this week. You raise $1 here, you pay $1 there. Epstein was brilliant at this. Sometimes the mechanizations went very wrong. The money Towers used to try to buy control of Emory Air Freight was lost when Emory's stock price plummeted. By 1993, prosecutors in Illinois and New York who had spent years investigating Mr. Hoffenberg's companies were ready to spell out their findings. In front of a grand jury in Chicago, federal prosecutor Edward Kohler walked Mr. Hoffenberg, who had just agreed to cooperate with the government, through the design of the scam. In the narrative Mr. Kohler laid out, Epstein was the technical wizard who kept the money moving around to support Mr. Hoffenberg's various schemes. Over and over, Mr. Kohler asked Mr. Hoffenberg whether Epstein had designed Towers' scams. Mr. Hoffenberg affirmed the prosecutor's story at every turn. Jeffrey Epstein was the person in charge of the transactions. And again, this is Donnie's best friend, okay? Keep that in mind too. His BFF at the same time. This is when they were two peas in a pod. And maybe the Three Musketeers with Prince Andrew too. I don't know, on occasion. Or maybe the Three Musketeers with Ghislaine, with Jizz. It was Jizz, Donnie, and Little E. That's really probably what the deal was. It was probably the three of them all the time. And then they'd get Prince Andrew when they could hang out with the royalty to add to the illusion. And Andrew was always hard up for cash. He was always hard up for cash. I wonder how many of them have gambling addictions. I mean, you could call these schemes gambling, but, it just so happens that Trump ran the Taj Mahal, the Trump Tower in Atlantic City, and that he's got Trump Tower in Vegas. So yeah, there could be a lot of gambling that's never talked about too, right? Wouldn't surprise me in the least. Jeffrey Epstein was the person in charge of the transactions, Mr. Hoffenberg said. Epstein was trying to manipulate the price of the stock, Mr. Kohler asked. Yes, Mr. Hoffenberg replied. You didn't object to that, sir? No, Mr. Hoffenberg said. That was in November 1993. 3 months later, Epstein's name disappeared from the case. Magically? In court hearings, FBI reports and affidavits throughout 94 and 95, prosecutors and FBI agents referred to Hoffenberg's co-conspirators, Confederates, and others. A review of court files finds no further reference to Epstein as the case moved towards a conclusion that convicted Mr. Hoffenberg and sent him to prison for 18 years. Mr. Kohler, still a prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago, declined to comment on why Epstein was removed from the case. Mr. Kohler needs to be held accountable, just like Alex Acosta needs to be held accountable, in my humble opinion. All I can tell you is that it was 25 years ago, Mr. Kohler said this week. And again, this is 6 years ago, back a few days after Epstein got Epsteined. I really haven't thought about it since then. Oh, well, if you haven't thought about it since then whatever. No. I'm sure many people whose lives were destroyed and they were financially devastated are still alive. Other prosecutors who worked on the cases said that Mr. Hoffenberg was always their primary target and that little E was removed from the government's narrative because he cooperated with the prosecutors. Right. Little E was not the focus of what we were doing, said Barry Gross, who represented the Illinois Department of Insurance in the case against Mr. Hoffenberg. We were trying to take over these insurance companies and eliminate the Mr. Hoffenberg management to protect the policyholders. Epstein was someone Mr. Hoffenberg favored, and he transferred substantial insurance company funds to Epstein. If you're looking at Epstein's mysterious accumulation of wealth, which many still are, it sounds right that this is the place to start. But Epstein was never our focus. Isn't that interesting? Gambling using minors as capital. Oh, Anna Bees, you are correct. I had never thought about that. Because my brain just doesn't work that way. But people do use people as OMG. Did I highlight that? Yeah, I did. Hoffenberg was the patsy. Aha. Mr. Hoffenberg, well, see, and little E would tell people that he would be the patsy. Like he would play the Cato, but then he would have someone else be the Cato. Be his Cato. Mr. Hoffenberg also cooperated with the government beginning in March 93, but his deal collapsed in early 94 when, according to the testimony by prosecutor Danielle Nardello, Mr. Hoffenberger violated the agreement by starting 3 new collection agencies and lying about it to prosecutors. OMG. Effectively continuing the scheme that got him in trouble in the first place. Tiger doesn't change its stripes. Remember that. Remember that for Dear Donnie. Because that's all he's been doing since he's been in office, with all his freaking cryptocurrency and crap and his $1 million dinners and turning the front yard of the White House into a freaking used car sales lot. OMG. Through a spokesperson, Nardello declined to comment. 1 month after the government presented its version of the case with little E as a major player, Mr. Hoffenberger admitted to prosecutors that he had lied to the government in an effort to find a way to support his family. And yeah, they want to look down their noses at people who are like working for a living, right? Act like they're bums when people are working as hard as they can and they can barely make ends meet or not make ends meet. Nardello wrote in an affidavit, and he moved to terminate the government's deal with Mr. Hoffenberg. Amy Millard, a federal prosecutor in New York who handled the case during sentencing, said Mr. Hoffenberg's repeated lying made it difficult to rely on anything he said. Yeah, that would be a lot like jizz, right? She pushed to revoke his bail and move forward with the charges. I did not think he was a credible witness, she said. Mr. Hoffenberg was hospitalized with depression in 1970. A psychiatric exam when he was sentenced in 96 concluded that although he was narcissistic, he was well-oriented and not disturbed or impaired. Why Mr. Hoffenberg did not give prosecutors details of Epstein's role in the scheme as part of his bid for a reduced sentence remains something of a mystery. And it could be that Mr. Hoffenberg had committed crimes against kids too, that he really didn't want his wife and children to know about. Like, he was fine to take the bullet for the financial scams as long as he didn't get discovered for being a rapist. In my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. Gary Baez, a Washington lawyer who represented Mr. Hoffenberg during his incarceration, said the judge in this case, Robert Sweet, told him years later that the purpose of the long sentence was to get Mr. Hoffenberg to give up co-conspirators. Sweet died this year. Oh, Sweet died the same year as Epstein. I got to write that name down. Do a little bit more digging. So he died in 19. Is that right? I think so. If it was somewhere around there. Or it was the same year that Epstein died. My pen lid fell. I'm trying to pick it up with my monkey toes. And the monkey toes aren't working. Nothing's working. Okay, there, I got my pen lid. I got a nice purple felt tip pen because I've been having trouble reading in this dim lighting. I didn't ask you guys how the lighting was. Is it too dim? Is it too dark? Let's see. Judge Sweet did not like the idea that he had sentenced Stephen to 18 years, but he said, by golly, I was trying to break him, Baez said. He couldn't figure out why Steve didn't blow the whistle on Epstein or others. Well, maybe because of that reason I said, that he had committed way worse crimes than financial crimes. Baez said he also couldn't figure it out. Clearly, any friendship between the two men had ended. After Mr. Hoffenberg was released from prison in 2013, Baez and his wife met Mr. Hoffenberg in New York, where the newly freed man unexpectedly offered to take them to Epstein's townhouse. I read this yesterday. I don't even remember that part. OMG. Baez said a young woman greeted them at the door. I remember this part, but yeah, I just was kind of like in a fog, too much alphabet. A young woman greeted them at the door, took their names, and disappeared inside. When she returned, Baez said she slammed the door in their faces. 4 other Towers executives were convicted of roles in the fraud, generally serving little or no jail time. Mr. Hoffenberg said he had decided he could not rat out a partner. He said variously that he was under threat from little e to remain silent and that prosecutors faced similar pressures to drop little e from their case. Okay, remain under threat. That means had their lives threatened by basically the mob. Remember who these people are connected to, who met with Daddy Vladdy today, who's meeting with him right now as we speak, possibly. So gross. So the prosecutors, the legal eagles, also had their lives threatened and their families' lives threatened, no doubt. Mr. Hoffenberg offered no evidence for his allegation, which Nardello, the prosecutor at the time, called desperate and ludicrous. Hoffenberger's insinuations reflect only on his apparent ability to project his corrupt view of the world onto others. Yeah, fake news. Mr. Hoffenberg said Little E's role in the scam eats at him. He got away with it because I didn't cooperate, Mr. Hoffenberg said. Yeah. How could you remove the architect of the crime from the story of the crime? I screwed myself. Man, I bit my tongue hard. Right as I said, screwed myself. Ironic, huh? Or no, not ironic, poetic. But I also got in bed with the wrong set of criminals. Oh, like there's a right set of criminals? The whole thing blew up, but he wasn't touched. Frail and in ill health, Mr. Hoffenberg says his last goal in life is to reimburse investors who lost money in the Towers scam. He intends to do that with Little E's money. Every dollar Epstein has raised since leaving me has been tainted because everything came from the money he stole in Towers, Mr. Hoffenberg said. In 2016, Mr. Hoffenberg and some of his victims joined forces to file suit against Little E, seeking restitution. But when a judge expressed skepticism that Mr. Hoffenberg could legally be part of a class action with his own victims, Mr. Hoffenberg withdrew the suit. Some of the victims say they believe Mr. Hoffenberg is truly remorseful. Others aren't buying it. Even if he is remorseful, he obviously doesn't have the ability to resist temptation, in my opinion. The concept of Hoffenberg being penitent is pure theater. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Penitent. I think so. Said Gross, the lawyer who represented Illinois in the insurance case. I'm not looking to clear my name, said Mr. Hoffenberg, who was interviewed in his room at Stanford Hospital in Connecticut, where he was awaiting surgery. I'm 74. I'm in a hospital bed. What do I have to gain? I owe people $500 million. The only way they get paid is with the money that Epstein took, which originally comes from the Towers scam. But although Mr. Hoffenberg claims to know where Epstein stashed his money overseas, he has not contacted law enforcement and doesn't plan to. They know my number, he said. And this is from the Washington Post. I think I said that at the beginning. Dang. That was a long article, and I think I only bit my tongue once. At least I only bit it bad the one time. Let's see. It's all so much. They're all scum. I agree, Annabise. So this is another similar article. I don't know if I should read it as well. One sec. But maybe I'll try because I had that one at the top of the description and I have this one at the bottom of the description. And honestly, I don't remember exactly what I was thinking when I put them there, but I'm sure I had good reason because I was really focused when I was doing it. So here's some bullets. Jeffrey Epstein's various companies paid him $400 million between 1999 and his death. An analysis of public documents by the New York Times, Matthew Goldstein and Steve Etter found. So, yeah, to this day, people really question where all of this rat bastard's money came from. And a lot of it was from selling arms to Israel, allegedly. But I'll just keep reading. Court records estimated that Epstein's estate was worth $500 million, according to the New York Times. Most of his wealth has been held in the U.S. Virgin Islands since at least 1996. Epstein's wealth comes from his privately held companies, with a substantial portion of it made by handling the $6.7 billion fortune of L Brand's CEO Les Wexner, according to Bloomberg. And that's exactly where my mind was going, is that this guy's name never gets brought up. But when Les Wex took little E under his wing, he signed over power of attorney to little E, and he told him that he could use his money as if it were her own, as if it was his own, that he had full access to the entire fortune. And, you know, some people think Les Wex is in some deep craziness too, not just selling clothing and, you know, nice smelling lotions and candles and such. Epstein was arrested in New Jersey on July 6th. This is going back to 2019 on Rex trafficking charges, and died by S, awaiting trial in New York in August. Before little E's death, the former financier who hobnobbed with Donald, the Clintons, British royalty, and Hollywood celebrities was accused of using his fortune to pay underage women to give him massages that became increasingly sexual in nature. Little is known about where little E's fortune comes from. Little E rose to prominence as the money manager of L Brand's CEO, Les Wexner. Vanity Fair reported in a lengthy profile in 2011. Unlike other well-known financiers, little E kept the client list and investments of his U.S. Virgin Islands-based firm, in addition to his own personal net worth, confidential. Little E, 66, died by suicide in a Manhattan jail on August 10th as he awaited trial on charges of Rex trafficking of minors. Little E had been in police custody since July 6th. He was arrested shortly after exiting his private jet in New Jersey's Teterboro. Am I saying that right? Teterboro Airport. He pleaded not guilty on July 8th and was being held without bail in New York City. On July 25th, little E was placed on self-injurious watch after a reported self-injurious attempt that led to his hospitalization. In 2007, little E pleaded guilty to charges of solicitation of prostitution and procurement of minors for prostitution in Florida, which is so insane because there's no like statutory or abuse, and minors can't be that P word. Let's see. I think Les Wex has to be involved in all that disgusting, depraved criminal behavior. Absolutely, Anna Bees. Just as I hypothesized yesterday that little E is Trumpster Fire's Cato, and that Maxwell is Trumpster Fire's Cato, I say that little E was played that role to Les Wex as well. Little E's first job in finance was working as an options trader at Bear Stearns, according to NBC News. He'd previously been a teacher at Dalton School, an exclusive Manhattan college preparatory school. They don't mention that it was all women and all girls school. It was transitioning to be co-ed around the time that he was there, to my understanding. But I think historically it had been all females. Epstein reached the level of limited partner at Bear Stearns before he left the company to launch his own firm in 1981, Vanity Fair reported. His firm was originally called J. Epstein and Company before being renamed Financial Trust. Let's see. He refused to reveal his client list to Vanity Fair in 2003, other than saying that they all have assets in excess of $1 billion. That type of secrecy is unusual among top financiers, the magazine reported. I was the only person crazy enough or arrogant enough or misplaced enough to make my limit $1 billion or more, Little E has said on multiple occasions, according to Vanity Fair's reports. Little E said he invests his clients' fortunes into currency markets. Wexner was not only Little E's sole confirmed client, but also a close friend. How close? According to Vanity Fair. According to the outlet, Little E had an active role in L Brands, which owns Bath & Body Works, Express, and Victoria's Secret. Vanity Fair reported that Wexner even asked Little E to fire L Brands employees. Little E denies rumors that he owes his firm's success to Wexner. However, I had really rich clients before, Vanity Fair reported. Wexner said he fired Epstein in 2007, according to the New York Times. Mr. Wexner severed ties with Little E more than a decade ago, and an L Brands spokesperson told Forbes. Wexner accused E of misappropriating Wexner's money in 2019, according to the New York Times. But he told him he could do anything with it, so he gave him full reign. Wexner's departure took a major toll on financial trust, according to an analysis of public documents by the New York Times. Remember, this is 2007. This is right before the economic monsoon of 2008. According to an analysis of public documents by the New York Times, Matthew Goldstein and Steve Eder, the Times said that it obtained the documents through a lawsuit based on the island's Division of Corporations and Trademarks the year before Wexner fired Little E. Little E's financial services company made $66 million in client fees alone, the Times reported. That's funny because he was 66 when he passed away. Just need one more 6 in there. An omen, right? 66 million in client fees alone. The Times reported in 2008, the year after the firing, the company only made $100,000 in fees. Oh man. Sorry to laugh. It goes from 66 million to 100,000 in just 1 year, from 2007, 66 million, 2008, 100,000. It went on to report an annual fee income of $100,000 in 2009, 2010, and 2011, and no income in 2013. Wexner has a net worth of $6.7 billion, according to Bloomberg. Little E referred to himself as a bounty hunter, according to Vanity Fair. That aspect of Little E's business took up 80% of his time, he said in a deposition. I'm pretty sure it was something else that took up 80% of his time. Gross. The U.S. Attorney's Office sued Little E in 1998, alleging he illegally subleased the former home of the Deputy Consul General of Iran. This is the townhouse in Manhattan. And I'm going to reread that. The former home of the Deputy Consul General of Iran, and charged the new tenant $5,000 more a month in rent than the State Department charged him for the residence. However, a review of court documents by Vanity Fair found the U.S. Attorney's Office lost the case. Little E was also sued by Citibank in 2003 over allegations he defaulted on loans he took out to fund investments, according to Vanity Fair. Wexner used a trust to buy the residence, which is believed to be the largest private residence in Manhattan, for $13.2 million in 1989, Vanity Fair reported. Little E moved in after Wexner and his wife Abigail Koppel moved to Ohio in 1996. Wexner's trust transferred ownership of the house to Little E in 2011 for $0. I thought it was $1 for $0. Usually you have to do it for at least $1. Prosecutors began the process of seizing the house in July, according to Bloomberg. Prosecutors alleged is the scene of some of the crimes Little E is accused of. Despite media reports to the contrary, Little E is not a billionaire, Forbes reported in July. Little E has never appeared on Forbes' ranking on the world's billionaires because of a lack of evidence on the size of his fortune, the magazine reported. The reported sources of Little E's wealth continues to be his hedge fund, which has released no public records. Most of Little E's wealth is held in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Financial Trust Company and Little E's other businesses are incorporated in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. According to Forbes, Little E relocated his work to the island in 1998, according to the New York Times. The size and location of Little E's wealth was long a closely held secret. Spencer Cohen, the attorney who represented 3 of Little E's accusers in 2011, in the 2011 sexual assault case in Florida. Oh, you never hear about the 2011 sexual assault case in Florida, do you? Guess who the attorney general was in 2011 in Florida? Yeah, Pamela Joe. Blondie Bondi. Okay. Wow. Okay, let me keep reading. This is fascinating. And again, I read this one last night too, but I had way too much alphabet at that point. And I knew it was important to read it to you guys because that, to me, that's a huge find right there. That's huge. Let's see what you're saying here, Anna B. Is okay, I think right here, along with Little E, Little T, Jizz, Prince Andrew, and the rest. Yep. Little E, a fox in the hen house. Exactly. 08, the year hardworking class people bailed these scumbags out. Exactly. I know. I was living in Seattle at the time, and it affected my private practice business tremendously. It was the year before we moved back to Ohio. It was crazy. And my husband worked for the Department of Fish and Wildlife for Washington State, and everybody was getting pink slipped because the state didn't want to pay the retirements. Like, people were getting pink slipped a year before retirement. It was insane. It was crazy. It made it easier to move back to Ohio. So that's, I guess, a good thing because we really wanted to raise our kids here. And that was a hard thing to make the move happen with, housing and both of our careers, and it was nearly impossible. Being a predator took up 80% of his time. Exactly, because it's almost like it took up 100% of his time. Like, seriously. Like, where did he have time to do any of this financial stuff? No wonder it was all crashing around him, because he was literally busy jacking off. Trigger warning. In reverse. Okay, most of Little E's wealth was held in the Virgin Islands. Financial Trust Company and Little E's other businesses are incorporated in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. According to Forbes, Little E relocated his work to the island in 1998. And remember, who has all of his records, allegedly, is Daddy Vladdy. He has every videotape, every notebook. He's got copies of everything, allegedly, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion. Daddy Vladdy has it all. Little E relocated his work to the island in 1998, according to the New York Times. The size and location of Little E's wealth was long a closely held secret. Spencer Coven, the attorney who represented 3 of Little E's accusers. Oh, did I already read this part? Sorry. In the 2011 sexual assault case in Florida, told Forbes that despite their efforts, those court proceedings did not reveal the size of Epstein's fortune. Little E's lawyer said only that his net worth had 9 figures. In 2012, Epstein left finance to open a DNA data mining service from the U.S. Virgin Islands that generated $200 million in revenue in 5 years. Whoa. That kind of seems like another nugget, doesn't it? I didn't heard anything about this. Again, it like went right over my head when I was reading through this yesterday. I was just really skimming the article at this point. Too much alphabet. Yes, I was being generous. He did sleep sometimes. I agree, Daddy Vladdy has it all. So this is wild. The company called Southern Trust reported that it made $51 million from client fees in 2013, according to the New York Times. Little E told U.S. Virgin Island officials that Southern Trust wasn't primarily a financial services business, exempting it from having to file documents with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Southern Trust did have a financial arm. Southern Trust did have a financial arm. Epstein told officials, according to the Times, the company had $391 million in assets and generated $43 million in revenue in 2017, according to the Times. Little E's various companies paid him a total of $400 million between 1999 and his death. So over 20 years, $400 million. What? That's only like $20 million a year. Am I doing my math right? Maybe 20 years, $20 million a year would be $400 million, I think, maybe, possibly. The New York Times, Matthew Goldstein and Steve Etter found the funds were paid out in a mixture of dividends and other payments, according to the Times. A mixture. What a weird word to use. Let me just read this little caption before I set this down. March 28th, 2017, up to 30 women were expected to take a judge up on his invitation to speak at a hearing. Tuesday, August 27th, 2019. After financier Epstein unalived himself rather than face the trafficking charges. So I never knew that one. Okay, so 30 women expected to speak at a hearing on the 27th of August, but on the 10th of August, he got Epstein. So 17 days before this was going to happen. And remember, too, that on August 19th, Kegsbreath married the woman that is pregnant with their 8th baby right now, who was his boss at Fox News when she had his first baby, when they were still married to their spouses that they each had 3 babies with. And they were all very young. The kids were toddlers. So they got married 9 days after Little E's getting Epstein, and they just so happened to get married at one of Trump's national golf courses in Vegas, or not Vegas, sorry, New Jersey. I need to wrap up. Hey, Coco, what you doing? Okay, so it's been almost 2 hours, so let me read what you're saying here and then sign off because I can't even see straight now. Thanks so much for being here, Anna Bees, and others that are here too that are remaining quiet if you want to say hi or bye. And you know what? I had it on top chat this whole freaking time. So if I missed anybody's comment, I apologize. Yeah. But all these people are Christians. Anna Bees. Right. Hegsbreath is a very, very good Christian. He's a Christian national or whatever. He's with that Doug Wilson, the guy from Idaho that thinks that women shouldn't vote. And something about Doug Wilson that was very striking when I first was looking into his corner of things in the Idaho 4 case. So he's like the lead pastor at that really bizarre church that I think they're headquartered in Moscow, Idaho. And then I think that one of their main branches is in Tennessee, where Kegsbreath crossed paths with. And Doug Wilson likes to burn everything down. So he likes making videos of himself. And he's always got a big fire at the end of the video. It's weird. It's especially weird when you just think about all the fires, the forest fires that have been in cities, basically, like the Pacific Palisades in Los Angeles area. Pacific Palisades is a city in and of itself, right there by Santa Monica, basically right between Santa Monica and Malibu. They're right between Santa Monica and Topanga. It's right by Sunset. I think it goes Santa Monica, Brentwood, Sunset, which is like Mulholland Drive. Remember all the stories about Mulholland Drive with all the, like, that's where Sharon Tate lived. A lot of horrible stuff happened on Mulholland Drive, which is like the Sunset area. So, because I used to live around there. So Santa Monica, Brentwood, Sunset, and then I think Mulhall Drive, Pacific Palisades, Topanga, and then Malibu, I think. If my memory serves me right, I think that's fairly accurate. It's been a while. It's been a minute. But yeah, I mean, that was my stomping grounds, Me and Dean Cain. That's so funny, man. What a freaking loser. And what was that other weird random story I told you guys about last week with the monkey brain at Mel Brooks's house that was being thawed out on the kitchen counter to be cooked for dinner? So that must have been like around 1975, right around 1975, the monkey brain story. And so, because I was reading about monkey brain after I talked about it on one of my lives with you guys, and any animal brain I think is illegal to feast on now because of diseases or something. I don't know, but yeah, it used to be a real thing that people really liked, not just that type of brain, but I guess like cow and I don't know, others. I mean, it's so gross. I'm not a vegetarian, but thinking about stuff like that makes me want to become one. So I'm gonna wrap up. Should I look real quick and see if they had their other 3-on-3 meeting, Daddy Vladdy and little Donnie D, little Taco Man? Or did he taco again? Did he? I bet he did. I won't look at too much. I'll just kind of get a gist for what it looks like here. It says total disaster. Putin meeting backfires. I'll have to watch that. So they did meet, maybe, possibly. Or maybe they're still meeting. I don't know. And yeah, I guess a lot of people in Alaska were protesting them coming, which is great. It should be protested. And then what else? Yeah, it doesn't look like they've wrapped up their meeting yet. Oh, so they're making it a felony for the for the sandwich that was thrown at the police officer. That poor guy. I mean, he's just getting hung out to dry. Basically, they're just trying to show off their fascism, is my opinion. That they're just trying to say, you do anything, you step out of line, and you'll get put in prison for 8 years. If you look at us wrong, that's 8 years, right? I mean, that's how I interpret it. What about you, Anna? Anna Bees. I just heard that the administration wants to let 14-year-old girls get married to adult men. OMG, Anna Bees, that doesn't surprise me at all, especially with that weird Christian national crap with Keg's Breath and Doug Wilson. That doesn't surprise me at all. But also, if they can change the law before the big bomb goes off with little t and little e's, duplicate crimes of assaulting children that age and having it like on videotape, then he can say, well, now it's legal, so I shouldn't be held accountable. Which, remember, I was saying that was what the goal was with him last week, saying that the two 15-year-olds that were arrested for allegedly assaulting big balls, that they should get tried as adults. But he didn't stop at 15. He said as young as 14 should be charged as adults from now on, alluding to me, indicating that he wanted to change the law, basically that 14-year-olds are adults. And that was my thought immediately, was laying the groundwork for this to be discovered, for him to be outed for being a pedo. And then he can say, but it's not pedo because, hey, they're 14 is adult now. So, like, and my guess is that there were younger, like the one that says she was 13, but that maybe there's not videotape evidence that is known about of that. And Anna says, I agree, exactly. It's really sick. It's really sick. Like, these people need to get a hold of themselves. And maybe if they were put in prison, it would give them the opportunity to get a hold of themselves, right? We can do that out of empathy. Just give them a chance to get a hold of themselves. Give you some time to think about it in jail, right? We can hope. So Donnie, being 79 years old and in poor health, he doesn't really give a crap about anything anyway, which he never did anyway, but even more so now. So I was starting to say how proud I was of the people in Alaska to be protesting peacefully the arrival of Daddy Vladdy and Taco Trump Stirfire. I can hardly say his name without saying Trump Stirfire, in case you hadn't noticed. I'm sure you had. We can hope. So yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap up. It is getting close to 7:00. Thanks again. Thanks a million for hanging in there. Excuse me, for 2 full hours, Anna, you win the prize. Let me send you something. Like a hat. You want the hat? I don't need any of my other hats now. Which one do you want? Taco tits. Yeah, the chicks from I've Had It that call him that and call him a titty baby. He's the biggest titty baby, Taco Tits. They've been getting criticized on Fox News, and I'm sure they're just so sad about it. It's like really good publicity for them because they just hit 1 million subs. They are just hitting it right now as we speak. Actually, I'm going to look. No hats don't look good on me. I want to look at, what's the name of their channel? I've Had It. I bet they hit 1 million. Let's see. View channel. 1.03 million subs. See, they probably like hit it because Fox News started criticizing them. I think just yesterday. That's probably what pushed them over the top. Thank you, Fox News. They are great. They're super smart. I like them. They're brazen. They're bold. They're funny. And they're in Oklahoma, very conservative area. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, they were super excited to get past 1 million because I guess you get a trophy. They're just going to make Taco Tits jealous, and now he's going to have his own YouTube channel with 1 million subs so that he can have a trophy too. I'm sure he'll be on the phone with them shortly. Just call up YouTube, say, give me your damn trophy. Give me all your trophies. Quit giving them to other people. I need them all. What a freaking idiot. He's such a whack job. Anyway, on that, love and light, my dear. Hopefully I'll be able to do a video, at least one over the weekend. At least one. We shall see. And thank you again. Have a great night. Eat your protein, drink your water, eat your fruits and veggies, and most importantly, just chillax, right? And be yourself. You be you.